Dopamine is the single most important molecule that is responsible for everything we humans do and also the things that we don't do. It is as if the whole purpose of our existence was to maximize the production of this molecule. At least, our instinctive or animal nature does say so. But the thing is that for thousands and thousands of years of our existence, we've been relying on some of the most basic and quite simpler activities to release dopamine into our system. Things like eating, procreating, and the most simple kinds of entertainment activities like hunting and sporting. However, now, in our current society, we are at an amazingly different position. The human progress of the past 50-something years have totally changed people's lifestyles. Most importantly, this progress is not linear but exponential. The obvious result is that we have an abundance of dopaminergic resources. We not only have more food, we also have much more interesting activities that can shoot massive amounts of dopamines into our brain without having us to do much. We have interesting graphic video games that we can keep playing for hours on end. We have social media to engage with or get attention from other people. And we also have ridiculously easy access to the other visual forms of entertainment and also information and education. All of this to the point that the purpose of most of our current day businesses is simply to release more and more dopamine into our system. So, does that mean that this dopaminergic lifestyle that most people have is a bad thing? Well, it depends. If we take a realistic look at how most people basically are and how things are changing, we come to know that we will always choose those activities that release more dopamine. Even if we consciously know that some other activity will be more beneficial in the long run, we'll almost always find a way to rationalize it to ourselves simply because it doesn't release more dopamine. This is why I don't like the idea of willpower. In my personal opinion, it is simply a waste of precious energy that could be used for other beneficial or creative tasks. Now, what I really like is the idea of systems. Systems that automatically put us in the right direction without us having to exert much force. Or in other cases, systems that quote-unquote regulate the amount of dopamine that we're getting in a manner that not only makes us feel better and productive, but also gives us the opportunity to truly enjoy the high dopamine activities without us having to feel bad about ourselves. Now, a good system might be different from person to person, but I'd like to move forward with the assumption that most people might not be very good with self-control, because most people I know, including myself, will also fall into this category. So let me give you a system to transform this weakness into power. To implement this system, you first have to take note of all the different activities that you do in a day or in a week and divide them into three main categories: high dopamine activities, transition activities, and low dopamine activities. The high dopamine activities usually include different forms of entertainment like video games, movies, partying, etc. Now, what I call the transition activities are those activities which help you transition from the high dopamine activities to the low dopamine activities in a smooth manner. The low dopamine activities are the work-related stuff. These are activities that have a low reward to effort ratio, or activities that are either completely banal or require a lot of creative effort. Moving on to the implementation process, there are mainly two ways to implement this system. You can implement it on a daily basis, or you can implement it on a weekly basis. Now, the basic law of this system is environmental influence, meaning that instead of using willpower, you manipulate your environment in a way that it presents you with the right cues or incentives for each respective activity. To implement this system on a weekly basis, you start with the high dopamine phase, which is literally your party mode. You can play video games, Netflix and chill, hang out with your friends, etc. You can make this high phase anywhere from 1 day to 3 day long, depending upon your professional and personal choices. After the 2-3 days of high dopamine activities, you move into the transition phase. This includes transition activities that either motivate and inspire you or help you visualize and use your imagination. For me, this includes watching inspirational or informative content on YouTube, diving into interesting documentaries, reading books, and writing. It is best to keep the transition phase one day long. Next, you head into the low dopamine work-related phase where you do the major, challenging activities relating to your work. This phase can last anywhere from 2 to 5 days. The weekly system can do best for you if you're an entrepreneur or self-employed person. Adjusting the different phases can allow you to perform either what I call the vacation mode, where the high phase is long and low phase is short, or the hard work mode with the low dopamine phase long and the high dopamine phase short. Now, for some people, there can be a sense of fatigue or low energy when they start implementing this system. To get rid of this problem, you can introduce detox phases in between the 3 phases, either once a week or twice. In the detox phase, you are not allowed to do any activity that releases any amount of dopamine, which means no gaming, no reading, and also no working. You can only do relaxing or what you may think as boring activities like meditating or taking a walk. As for those who feel like the weekly system is not for them, they can implement a daily system. However, the main difference between the daily and the weekly system is that in the daily system, it is better to start with the low dopamine phase. This is because of the low reward to effort ratio, as in the earlier part of the day, you have more amount of energy. The rest of the sequence will be the same. One thing you should be careful of is that you must not think about the high dopamine phase while you're in the transition phase or doing your low dopamine work. Of course, when you leave your high dopamine phase, there will be considerable momentum if you're a highly dopaminergic person like me, which may compel you to keep thinking about it or even find a way to manipulate the system in order to keep doing it. At such points, you must stay present and conscious. So now that we're done with the workings of the system, let's talk about how to manipulate your environment so that you're able to get the right cues or incentives for the right activity at any particular time. In our current age, we spend most of our time pecking at our cell phones. So the first step to make this system work is to successfully control your digital environment. If you're able to control and monitor what you can or cannot access on your smartphone, 90% of your work will be complete. Now, the most used feature for anyone having and using smartphones is the different cell phone applications or apps. Whether it's Netflix, YouTube, or some video game that you use to distract yourself, all of them are apps. By blocking these apps for specific time frames, which means according to your dopamine phases, you can ensure that your digital environment is under your control. There are a number of apps, both for Android and iOS, that you can use to timely block other applications. As for controlling your physical environment, you can allocate different spaces for each phase with respective physical and visual cues. In this case, only you can decide what works best for you, what you can tolerate, and what you must rid yourself of at all costs. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more videos like this.